Hi, everybody. It's Liz Scott, and welcome to our very first open mic marketing session. So, I'm super excited about this opportunity to answer your questions and address any issues that you might have. And, I called it open mic marketing, but I'm certainly going to address any sales questions that you might have as well. So this is kind of an experiment for me, and we're going to sort of be flexible and take it where it goes. Let me give you a little bit of background about myself before we jump in and actually start to take some of your questions, because sometimes there's some folks that join the calls a little bit later. So some of you know me, some of you may not, so I'm just going to give you the 30-second overview of who I am and, why it might be valuable for you to listen to some of the things that I have to say. So I spent the bulk of my career as a marketing VP in the high-tech and telecommunications space, and had the luxury of managing global teams. So I got to experience marketing in different cultures, in different languages, and also had the good fortune to work for Fortune 500 companies, as well as a number of high-tech startups in the 80s. So what that does really is give me the best of both worlds in terms of learning best practices from some of those Fortune 500 companies, but also understanding what it's like to be employee number 3 and growing the business up to 120 people, at which point we got acquired by Bell Mobility, which is why I then transitioned over to working for Bell. But, as a lot of you who are on the call, I decided that, working in the corporate space wasn't really serving me. And those of you who know me know that I tend to work with people who are really passionate about what it is that they're doing in their businesses, and that it's somehow aligned with their calling or their life purpose, or that they really want to bring meaning into what it is that they're doing. So they get very disillusioned with the corporate world, and so I decided that it was time to move on and do something else. And so, I sort of took a look at understanding that I really loved working with startups and small business owners and was very passionate about that, and very quickly realized that sales and marketing was an area that a lot of entrepreneurs really struggled with. And so why that is, I think, is because, of course, you guys are amazing at what it is that you do, but you haven't necessarily been taught formal sales or marketing techniques. And also, let me just tell you that, even for me with a very strong marketing background, it was completely different managing my own marketing for my own business versus having a big budget and, working with someone else's money and having a big team and a whole bunch of people that you could brainstorm with. So having grown my own business, because I am the founder of Affinity Coach Consulting, the business Firestarter, I really do understand how challenging it is to try to figure out what kinds of marketing will work and what kinds won't. So why did I start open mic marketing? I really just wanted the opportunity for folks in the community to ask questions about what's going on within their businesses and their own marketing struggles. There's lots of Facebook groups where you can post and you can get specific answers, but I thought this might be a little bit more fun and a little bit more dynamic, getting your questions answered live on the webinar. And so, having said all of that, we did have a number of folks register for the call, so we're going to try to get through as many people as we can and just jump in and answer your questions. So you should all have a little hand beside your name, and if you do have a question, then raise your hand up and I will go through and I will try to answer the questions as best as I can while we're waiting for a few more folks to jump on the call. So I'm going to open it up and okay, so there's our first question. Okay. So you're unmuted, Michelle. How and what do I need to focus on in order to increase my revenue on a more consistent basis? Okay, so you're unmuted.
Yep, I'm unmuted.
Okay, great. So you want to tell me a little bit about what it is that you do?
Actually, you and I met at a networking conference in October. So my business is Go for Girl. I am your extra pair of hands.
Okay.
So really, what I'm trying to figure out next is just getting consistent clients because I kind of go in waves where I get really, really busy for a month and then I could be quiet for a month. And I'm just trying to figure out the opportunities that I'm missing, I guess.
Okay, so that's a great question. And by the way, that's very, very common in the early days of starting and growing your business. So, you can call it the entrepreneurial roller coaster or the revenue roller coaster, but
Uh-huh.
but what ends up happening is that it's almost a feast or famine situation. And so there's a number of different things that you can do to try to normalize your pipeline. Of course, one of the things that you always want to focus on is keeping your sales funnel full through lead generation. And so then the question becomes, okay, well, how do I generate leads, right? Is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Okay. So are you within your first year of your business?
No, I'm going into my third.
Okay. So then you've probably got a fair amount of clients that you've already started to work with.
Yeah, I would say majority of my business are a lot of, and I call them one-ofs. Like they just need me for one thing, and that's great. But it's just trying to get more people like that because I have about four consistent people
Hmm.
um, that book me on a regular basis. Sometimes even on a weekly basis. But it leaves large gaps of my time that is available.
Right. So for your existing clients, do you have a referral program?
Um, no.
Okay. So one of the easiest and fastest ways if you're in year 3 of your business is, and you've got existing clients who are really happy with the work that you're doing. And this is a very common thing that a lot of entrepreneurs do as well. So don't feel badly for any of this because it's all common and I hear it all the time. But as women, we are so open to asking our friends, who's a great mechanic or who's an amazing hairdresser or do you have an interior designer that you love, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Constantly do that. But when it comes to our own businesses, sometimes we can't see the forest for the trees. So I would say, one of the fastest ways is for you to create some sort of formalized referral program and make that very available and promote it like crazy so that your existing clients know that if they refer someone to you and you actually close the business, that they are going to get something.
Okay.
Now, a lot of my small business guys say to me, okay, Liz, that's great, but I can't really afford to give them a formal referral fee, and that's fine. Maybe you say, you'll give them a free hour of your time or you give them a $10 Tim Hortons gift card. Whatever it is, the point is that they know that there's some sort of incentive for them to refer.
Okay. Okay. I like that. Okay.
And also, don't be afraid to ask. It's so interesting to me as business owners, particularly women. Like I said, we rely on our network so heavily for things to do with our personal lives, and yet we're very reluctant to ask when it comes to our businesses. So ask everybody. Ask your
Okay.
hairdresser, ask your plumber, ask the lady at the grocery store.
I think I can do that. All right. Thank
All
you.
right, awesome. You're welcome. Thanks. Okay, next question. Okay, Kate, what is your question?
I have a question about blogging. How often should I blog and roughly
Hi, Kate. Can you ask your question?
can you hear me? Can you hear me?
We can't hear you, but if you want to type your question in the chat box, I will read it out to everyone. There's something, it sounds like there's something going on with your microphone. Um, so if you want to type in your question, that would be awesome. Okay, so the question is, how often should I be blogging and how long should my blogs be? So this is a great question, and I get a lot of questions about blogging and social media. So let me tell you that the general rule of thumb for blogging to me is it really depends on how much you love it. If you love to write and you know that you've got a real talent for it and what you say is interesting, then blog every day. I mean, if that's a marketing technique that's helping you to build your list and helping to get you followers, and you know that people are reading it and it's driving web traffic, then I say, absolutely you can blog every day. That isn't the case for most of us. In fact, I know there was a gentleman that I met at an event who came to me very disturbed, and he said, you know what, I heard from a marketing expert that I should be blogging 3 times a week, and he said, I absolutely hate blogging. And I said, okay then, you know what, don't blog. So I would say if you love it, do it. If you don't, maybe that's not the right marketing tool for you. As a general rule of thumb, the minimum you should be doing is 2 blogs per month. The average length is around 300 words, although I'm hearing from search engine optimization experts that people are now starting to go for longer posts. So a couple of years ago, it was all about, keep it to 300 words. But now those posts are starting to get longer and longer. And in addition to that, people are now really starting to go to video and Facebook Live. So instead of calling it a blog, it's called a vlog or a video log. And I understand that YouTube now, which is owned by Google, has some amazing SEO going on with it as well. So, a lot of people are not comfortable with the written word. And a lot of us are not comfortable with being on video as well. But I would say, if writing is not your forte, you might want to go to video. But the general rule of thumb would be at least a couple times a week, at least a couple times a month, and definitely 300 plus words. So hopefully that answers your question. And we can now move on to the next person. Okay, so if you have a question, if you want to raise your hand. Penny, can you hear me? Penny?
Yes.
Can you
Yeah, I
hear
can
me?
hear you. Mm-hmm.
Great. Do you have a question?
I don't have any questions.
Oh, you're just
I was
listening.
just
Okay.
listening in.
Well, go ahead and ask a question anyway, since I've got your mic open.
Hmm.
What's going on in your business? What can you use help with for sales or marketing?
I don't know. I can't think of anything off the top of my mind.
Well, Well, why don't you tell us a little bit about what kinds of things you do for lead generation that work really well for you?
Maybe I'm not doing enough for lead generation.
Okay.
I don't know.
All right. So that's a great thing. Let's start with that. So what kinds of things do you do? I know for sure that you network because that's how we met in the first place.
Yes, I do network face to face.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not good at actually asking for, like, people, like you said earlier, asking them to, for business. And then I do, the social media stuff. And then I have some affiliates that I work with, like people that I'm connected with printers and promotional people and, photographers, web designers, that kind of thing.
Great. So why don't you tell the group a little bit about what it is that you do, and then I am going to talk a little bit about strategic partnerships because I think that's a very, very critical point. But go ahead and give your business a plug and talk a little bit about who you are and what you do.
All right. I do graphic design. I run my own business doing that. I started last year. I do have 15 years experience though in print and digital advertising. So sometimes people don't know what graphic design really means, but any kind of marketing materials I do logo design, postcards, business cards, Facebook image posts, the cover images and stuff for Facebook too. And I do like to do wedding stuff, so I like doing wedding invites and designing those and all the little details that go along with weddings. Yeah, and when I do my branding too, I like to focus on the connection with that person, with their business. Almost like it's almost like we build the brand together, so that it really feels connected to who they are, so that there's a connection when they go out and when they go out with their business, that it really truly reflects them and that people will get it and they'll understand and they'll know that it's them, to help with that brand recognition.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. Okay, so one of the things that that we heard her talk about was strategic alliance or strategic partnership. So I just want to address that because this to me is one of the fastest ways that you can actually grow your business. And so, when I do presentations, I talk about sort of batching things when you hit that $50,000 mark in revenue. What's the fastest thing? People always ask me, well, what's the fastest thing that's going to grow my business after I've hit that number? And I always say the fastest way to do that is through what I call strategic partnerships or strategic alliances. So what is that exactly? So that is a group of people who already have an established network of your ideal clients. So what does that mean? I'll give you an example. So for me personally, I work with entrepreneurs and small business owners, and I know a lot of you on the call do as well. So I run a big a women's networking group called the Women's Entrepreneurial Network North, and I have about 600 members in that group right now. So if there was somebody whose ideal target audience was entrepreneurs, female entrepreneurs and small business owners, I would be a great person for you to get to know because I already have 600 people in my network. Now, obviously, how do you do that, right? You want to make sure that you get to know the person and that you in some way offer something to them. And, I know that this can be a bit of a scary conversation, but I'm going to go back to the example of, if you called me up and said, hey, you know what, I hear you run an amazing group. I would love to come and check it out sometime and get to know you and tell me who your ideal client is. How can I help you? So what you want to do really is create a list within your sphere of who those kinds of people are, right? So it could be people who run big networking groups. It could be somebody who is a leader in the community. It could be vertical specific. So let's say that you want to target the financial industry or the IT services industry, or you want to work with the accounting industry. So the idea always is that you want to establish these strategic alliance partnerships with people who can help you grow your business very quickly. Now, it might take a while for you to get to know these people and for them to know, like, and trust you to refer you, but your business is going to grow exponentially. Because for you to just go to individual networking groups and try to meet 600 people at once would be virtually impossible, right? We just don't have that kind of time to connect. But to meet one person who already has 600 people and get them to open up their network is absolutely invaluable. So hopefully that was helpful to you. Okay, I'm going to go to the next question. Which I can't see for some reason. Okay, oh, still a problem. Okay, I'm going to go down here and see if I can do this. Okay, Michelle, you've got a question that you want to ask.
Oh, I already asked it.
Oh.
I was the first one.
Okay, is that the only question you have? Because it was still showing that your hand was up.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean for that to be like that. Well, I found it very interesting about the established partnerships. That was, I'm not into blogging, because I mean, part of this, I'm really learning as, jumping on the ground, like feet first and going. So I'm kind of just learning as I go along. Just trying to think. I like that part. And I can't think of anything else. That was because you really answered my question at the first part that I was looking for. So now I'm just kind of listening and taking notes to everybody's what they're saying.
Okay, sounds good. Then I'm gonna put you back on mute if that's okay.
Yeah, that's great.
All right. Oh, sorry, you were still talking.
No, I said that was fine.
Okay, good. Thank you so much. Okay, so we're getting ready for the next question. Okay, that person is having trouble with their microphone. Oh, so we're having a couple of people with some challenges with their microphone. So I'm just going to read the question out to you. So the first question is, how important is it to have your website completely functional if you're in the startup phase of your business? Oh, that's such a great question. Yeah, okay. I can get on a bit of a soapbox with websites, so bear with me with this one, but thank you. That's a great question. So I get asked this question a lot, by the way, with my startup guys, and the only proviso that I can give you is that in the first, I would say, well, from 0 to at least your first 24 months of being in a business, you're going to go through an incredible amount of change in your business because you're on a very steep learning curve. So what you're going to do is you're going to go out into the community and you're going to start to have conversations with people. And you're going to start to get your first few clients. And because of that, you're going to start to understand what really is resonating with the people who want your services. So sometimes we sit and we think, we're going to create content for our websites and we're going to create our web copy, and we get all caught up in what it looks like and what size the font is and what colors we use, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And then realize several months later that what we thought were legitimate concerns and problems that our target audience has was in fact something different or something deeper, or they wanted more information than some of the things that we were offering. And so what very often happens is that we end up changing a lot of things to do with our website. In fact, we often even change our branding. our physical branding, as you know, one of the people was speaking about before, which is sort of our graphic design, um, or we change our colors, or we change our content. And so, you know, I see a lot of people who say they've spent a lot of money getting their website up and running before they even start doing business, which I don't advise. You know, you can put a couple of pages up on your website, and then you can list the rest of it as being under construction. And then as you figure out what it is that you want to say, then you maybe want to start to work with a more sophisticated web designer or copywriter or tweaking your copy. Because what I don't like to see is entrepreneurs going out and spending a lot of time and money trying to get their website perfect. And I don't know if you guys know, but the number one page on any website that is ever read is the About You page. So if you have a really compelling story on your About You page, that's really what they want to know. Who are you? What do you look like? What are your credentials? So I hope that makes sense to you guys. I'm just going to open up some of the mics and see if anybody wants to make a comment on what I just said and if that's actually been your experience. So does anybody want to make a comment on what I said? Do you think that's true? Just throw your hand up if there's something that you want to say. Okay, well, I guess that makes perfect sense to everybody, and hopefully you found that interested. Okay, I see Carol's on the call. So Carol, I'm going to pick on you and unmute you and just see if you're on and if you have anything to say. Doesn't seem like she's going to contribute. Okay, we're ready for
Yes, I'm
the...
here. I'm here.
Oh, okay, good. Okay, so Carol, what do you think about what I said? Has that been your experience?
Yeah, I just want to go back to something that you said, that you really need to know one person who has access to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's really important. And I will be calling you later because I really want to go into more detail on that, because I've been going to some networking events and I don't know the people. I'm trying to build a relationship, but they don't know me. They don't know who I am. So we run into that trust factor. So I think if I go through someone who has access to a lot of people and that someone can verify that I'm someone they know, they trust, and almost like a reference for me, I think that might open a lot of doors for my business.
Okay, thank you. I'm glad I unmuted you. So I'm going to mute you back while I address that just because we've got a bit of static. So that's an absolutely great point, which is to say, you know, it takes the risk out of getting to know somebody. So what do I mean by that? Well, you know, when I was in the high tech world, we always used to say nobody ever got fired for buying IBM. And that was because IBM was the de facto standard of being very, very, very reliable. So it was kind of a no-brainer if somebody said, go buy an IBM product, that's what you did. So, you know, to Carol's point, if I know somebody really well and I recommend Carol, then that just takes the weight off of their shoulders for that decision-making process. So what does that do? It speeds up or accelerates the know, like, and trust factor, because they know me, they like me, they trust me. Carol knows me, she likes me, she trusts me. Therefore, when I put two people together, that know, like, and trust factor, as I said, is automatically accelerated. So yeah, that's a great, great example. And I always recommend that if you can get a warm or warm-ish introduction, you are miles and miles and miles ahead. And this is 100% true for those of you who are on the call that are trying to get more into what I would call the target audience of commercial or corporate, right? So I know there's some people on the call that I don't know, but there's some folks on the call that I do. And, entrepreneurial market is one market segment, but then there's also that small, medium business segment, so 5 to maybe 25 million in revenue. And then there's the big sort of Fortune 500 groups. And so if that's your target audience and you're trying to get into any sort of a company that has, more than 50 employees, then you're going to have a very tough time if you don't have a warm introduction. And so one of the questions that I always get is, well, Liz, I don't know how to do that. Like, I don't know anybody who works at that company. So, my suggestion always is to go to two of the biggest search engines in the world, which is Facebook and LinkedIn. And on LinkedIn, you can very quickly see somebody that you may know who knows the person that you're targeting within that company. Maybe a second or a third or even a fourth connection, but you can work your way through and ask for introductions. And that's the other thing that I really recommend to you guys who are going after that corporate commercial market is it's not enough to just say, okay, I really would like to do business with, and I hear this all the time, I'd really like to do business with Bell or TELUS or Rogers. Okay, well, that's great. But you need to target people specifically within that business. Who is it that you want to deal with? Do you want to deal with the person who looks after administrative services? Right? I see one of my folks that's a professional organizer is on the call. So, are you going to approach the director of authorized Rogers dealers because maybe they need to have some assistance getting their physical bricks and mortar stores organized? So you really need to figure out who it is within those organizations that you really want to target and then go after them. It's not enough to just have some sort of vague idea in terms of the company or the industry that you want to go after. So, so thank you. Okay, so next question is, okay, great question. I do a lot of networking, but don't find that I'm getting a lot of business out of it. Do you have any recommendations on how I can be more effective in my networking? Perfect question. So those of you who have worked with me or have heard me speak or are currently working with me know that I really encourage face-to-face when you're trying to ramp your business up. So I do highly encourage a lot of networking, and I do highly encourage belonging to networks. But here's the thing. You need to be networking in groups that have 50% or more of your ideal clients. So let me say that again. You need to be networking in groups that have 50% or more of your ideal target clients. Because here's what I see. I see people who go to the same networking groups over and over and over again because they have fun and it's safe and they have friends there and they have coffee there. And I say, you know what, that's great. Do that on your social time. You're networking for a purpose. Your time is valuable. So you need to make sure that you're going where you can get potential clients. And also, there's a process to networking that a lot of people don't do. So a lot of people just show up at the event, they meet who they meet, they might exchange a few business cards, they might even follow up on social media afterwards, and then they go their merry way. So what I recommend whenever possible is to research who is attending the networking group that you're going to be in. So if you go through Meetup, or you're going through some sort of an organized networking group like eWomen or Pink Portfolio or any of those women's groups, often you can see who the attendees are when you register. And usually you're required to put a little bit of a blurb in about who you are and what you do. And so what I recommend is going through those lists before you get to the meeting and targeting 2 or 3 key individuals that you really would like to connect with when you're at that call or when you're at that meeting. And then what you want to do is you also want to reach out to the organizer before the meeting if you don't know them, because you're starting already to establish that know, like, and trust factor, right? So yeah, I know you, I like you, I trust you. Hey, I'm coming to your group. I'm super excited about it. Then when you get to the group, you've earned the right to go to the organizer and say, hey, I hear Bob Smith is going to be here. I think, we might have some mutual clients that we could attract, or we might be great referral partners for each other, et cetera, et cetera. Would you mind introducing me? So you meet your 2 or 3 individuals, and then you follow up with them in a meaningful way when you leave. So firstly, it's very nice just to thank the organizer, to say, hey, thanks for running the networking session, thanks for introducing me to Bob. And then you want to follow up with those 2 or 3 people that you actually met on social media, a nice quick note. And then again, you want to offer them something first. So, hey, it was great chatting with you. Who's your ideal client, so that if I come across them, I can refer them to you? So there is, as I said, a process to networking, right? So let me just recap what it is. Number 1, make sure that more than 50% of the people that go to that group are your ideal clients. If they're not, don't go. Your time is way too important. Number 2, target the people you want to focus on before the meeting. Then target them when you're at the meeting, and then follow up with them when you're finished the meeting. And hopefully that makes sense to you guys. So anybody on the call want to comment on that? Either in the chat or in the open mic? Okay, go ahead. I will unmute you. Okay, go ahead.
Hi, I was wondering where I could find the best networking groups for my business.
Sorry, can you type it in the chat, because for some reason your microphone is not really clear. Okay, so I'm going to read it from the chat group. And I'm not seeing it pop up on the chat group. Huh, okay. Not sure what's happening with that person's microphone. Let me just scroll through the panel here and see if anybody else has a question. Okay. Great. Okay, let me see the next question that's popping up. And the next question has to do with, oh, that's an interesting question. Okay, so how do we create an effective tagline? Ooh, okay, that's a great question. This is not an area that I focus on specifically within my Affinity Coach Consulting, the Business Firestarter, but it does kind of bleed over into things that I do get asked occasionally, and I certainly have a depth of experience from dealing with this from my corporate days, where I absolutely ran branding and marketing communications departments. So Sorry. Okay. So the question is, how do I go about it and create an effective tagline? Okay. So the general rule of thumb is that you want to have it either evocative or descriptive. So what does that mean? So evocative is something that creates the illusion of what it is that you're trying to convey. So what do I mean by that? So there's a car called a Jaguar. Well, we know that a jaguar is an animal, but when we think of a jaguar, we get the picture of sleek and fast and smooth. So that's an example of something that's evocative. The second category is that it's descriptive. So that really is exactly what it sounds like, which is to say it describes what it is that you do. So my tag is the business fire starter. So that describes what it is that I can do for you, which is really what I do, which is help you to get your businesses to the next level. The other thing that you really want to do is try to make it memorable. So if you think of Lay's potato chips, bet you can't eat just one, or Hertz rental car, we're number 2, we try harder. So something along those lines is what's going to really help you create an effective tagline. And again, it really depends on what your personality is like. I mean, you know, if you want to have a little fun with it, then you can do something tongue-in-cheek like, you know, we're number 2, we try harder. If you're more of a serious, then you might want to go with more of the descriptive, which is, you know, excellent accounting services, or, you know, whatever it is that your business actually does. So hopefully that answers your question, and I'm happy to chat with you guys afterwards offline if you would like a more in-depth understanding of that, or if you're interested in any worksheets that I have as well. Okay, so moving along to the next question. Okay, so the next question is, if I'm under $50,000 in revenue, what types of marketing should I be doing, and how much should I be spending on it? Okay. That's a great question. And thank you for asking that question, because what usually happens is people go through a whole period of trial and error where they're doing things that are not necessarily targeted in a specific way to get results. So there was actually a few questions in there. So let me address the how much money should I be spending on marketing if I'm under 50K. So the general rule of thumb is that you want to be spending about 10% of your gross revenue on marketing per year. 10% gross revenue in marketing dollars per year. So that's to say if you're at 50K, you probably should be spending around $5,000 in marketing. Now, here's the catch-22 that I hear all the time, which is people who say, well, if I have no revenue, then I can't spend 10% of nothing if my revenue is nothing, right? But you absolutely have to, and it absolutely amazes me the number of people who start businesses and have no money to invest in marketing. You absolutely have to make that investment. You need to have a plan, and you need to go at it from a strategic perspective, because it's not going to happen on its own. If it was that easy, it wouldn't be the 7%, right? 93% of all entrepreneurs fail. Scary, scary, scary statistic. Because we need somebody to hold our hands and show us the roadmap and teach us, if we're going to spend 10% or we're going to do a marketing investment, let's make sure we're doing the things that are going to generate revenue. And this is where people go wrong. And that's why I went back to my earlier question of the person who talked about the website, because I know people who spend $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 on a website before they've even gotten their first client. Well, the website is not going to generate leads for you if people don't know, like, and trust you and know who you are in the community. And so that ties back to the other question, which is, what kinds of marketing should I be doing if I'm under 50K in revenue? And that is to say, networking, word of mouth, and referrals. When you're trying to establish your business, you really need to build your community of know, like, and trust. And the more face-to-face that you can do, the better it is. Now, I know people who say they live in remote areas and, they've got little kids and it's really hard for them to physically get to networking. In which case I say, okay, you can do virtual networking, but when you're first building your business, the absolute best way to do that is to just get out and talk to people and have conversations with them, right? For a number of different reasons. One, it builds the know, like, and trust factor way faster. Two, you can ask people if they know anybody who they would be willing to have a conversation with you about, who was your ideal client. And also, by doing face-to-face when you're under 50K, it gives you the validation that what you're offering really has a demand from the market. So what do I mean by that? I mean, people on social media don't always tell you the truth. Right? Sometimes they tell you what they want to what you want to hear. Sometimes we're living in that what I call the Facebook facade world, where you look at other people and you think, why is their life perfect? Why is their business perfect? Why are they doing what I'm doing, but they're doing it so much better? Well, we don't even know that that's true. It could be completely the Facebook facade, the illusion. But when you're standing across from someone and you're having a conversation with them and they look you in the eye and they start to nod their head and they start to get really engaged and animated, it's the raised eyebrow question, which is, wow, that's interesting, tell me more. Then you know that that's a legitimate response. And you know that there is actually a demand for what it is that you're doing. So hopefully that makes sense to you. And that answered your question. I see that there's another question, so let me just go through. I want to be cognizant of our time. Okay, so the next question is, what are the pros and cons to social media when you're first starting out your business? I could get on a big social media soapbox, and in fact, I have many times when I speak. I'm all for social media if it's pointed and meaningful and really relates to your business. But, when I speak, I often say the average entrepreneur in Canada spends 76 minutes per day on Facebook alone. Now, there's no way that you're spending 76 minutes a day posting things about your business, right? We all go down the rabbit hole. So, I want you to use social media in a way that's going to be highly effective for your business. Yes, you want to start to establish some online communities. You want to start to build yourself up as the thought leader. But it takes a long time to start to generate solid leads through social media. And here's the other thing about social media. The lower the price of your service or product offering, the lower the price of what you offer, the higher the probability that you're going to get leads through social media. So if you're offering a product or a service that costs $100, yeah, you might get some interest through social media. But if you're offering something that costs $10,000, it's highly unlikely that that's going to be the first touch point for you on social media. chances are it's going to go the other way around. Somebody meets you, you have a coffee with them, they go to your LinkedIn profile. So, my advisement always is don't spend too much on social media in the early days of your business. And this kind of breaks my heart because I talk to a lot of entrepreneurs and small business owners, and one of the first things that they say to me is, well, I don't have a ton of budget because I'm already paying my social media consultant. To which I say, what are you saying to those people in the world of social media? If your messaging is not bang on, if you're not crystal clear who your ideal clients are, then why are you paying somebody to go out and talk to the social media communities when people are not necessarily going to resonate with what it is that you say? And so that's one of the other reasons why I say early days, face to face, ask the questions, find out what it is that really matters, and then start to have conversations on social media. And remember always the 80-20 rule, right? So 80% should be high value content going out to your audience, and 20% about things that you're doing or things that you're offering, right? Okay, we have one final question being typed in, and the question is, how effective are trade shows as a marketing technique? Wow, you guys are asking excellent questions. So how effective are they? Okay, so I'm going to go back to my example of networking, which is that if you approach trade shows from a very strategic perspective, they can be highly impactful. But the mistake that a lot of people make is they don't create something before the show, during the show, and after the show. So a lot of things in marketing are really a three-step process. So let's approach it from what do we do before the show. So one of the things that you want to do is you want to let people know that you're going to be at the show. You want to have some sort of compelling reason or offer or bonus or discount as to why they want to go and visit you at the trade show, right? And you want to start to drive as much traffic before the event to your booth, table, exhibit, whatever it is. Then when you're there, you always want to have some sort of offering, draw, something going on at your booth and or table so that you can at the very least get business cards dropped in so that you can start to build your mailing list, right? So you always want to be growing your list and keeping in contact with them. So that's an easy way, get a really nice basket, decorative basket, or a couple of bottles of nice wine and, have a little card thing beside it where people drop their business cards in to win. And this is a very rudimentary, this is not bells and whistles booths, for wedding planners and things like that. This is just sort of a standard, I'm an entrepreneur, small business owner, under $100,000 mark. So you're driving traffic before, you're getting people excited about what it is that you're doing when you're at the actual trade show, and then you want to follow up with them. So again, you want to have some sort of compelling thing that you talk to them about at the end of the show. So it could be, there's a show offer for your products or services, and you email them and say, hey, you know what, thanks for dropping by my booth. I'm going to extend this offer to you for another week or so. Or would you like to do a complimentary session with me? Or, can I put you on my mailing list? So whatever it is that looks like for you, again, it's that three-step process of doing your pre-marketing work, doing the event marketing work, and then doing your post work. And what I hear all the time is people do the event work but they don't do the pre and post. Or if they do the event work and they get all these business cards dropped into their business box, then they'll add them to their mailing list. Or I've even heard some people say, you know, I got 90 cards from this trade show event that I went to, and I haven't even had time to put them into my system yet. So go with the intent that you're actually going to do the work after the event, because that's where people fail. That's where people fall down. And then they say, you know, I spent $2,000 or $500 to go to this event, and, you know, I didn't really get any leads from it. Well, you know, did you, or did you just not follow up with them? So trade shows can be very effective if they're done properly, but also they can be very costly. So there's a difference between getting a $250 table somewhere versus going to a full-on trade show. I recommend in the early days that you stick to smaller events and smaller venues, again, so people can get to know, like, and trust you. And then as you build up your revenue stream, you know, you want to pick events that, again, are going to have more than 50% of your ideal target audience and who are going to get to know you face to face. So they're going to stop by your table, they're going to stop by your booth, and have conversations with you. Okay, so I see that we are at the end of our time. I really enjoyed this, and I hope you guys did as well. It's great for me to get the opportunity to hear your questions so that I stay in touch with my clients and potential clients, and I hope that you found this really valuable. And, you know, I'm going to do this once a month, and I hope that you will spread the word and invite more people so that you can absolutely get your questions answered, but also just get free marketing tips and tricks, and maybe pick up the odd tidbit about something that you never even considered in your own business. So if you guys want to have any closing remarks, then you can put your hand up and just make a comment, or maybe just give me some feedback. I mean, was this helpful to you? Was it useful? Because I'm doing open mic marketing for you guys. I'm not seeing a whole bunch of hands. Okay, well, listen, I would love to hear your feedback. If you want to shoot me an email or reach out to me via social media, I would love to get your feedback. And I may reach out to some of you guys who are on the call to ask you just to do a 1 or 2 sentence blurb for me on how you enjoyed it, because I really do want to bring this to the community. And our next open mic marketing with Liz Scott is going to be on Wednesday, January the 18th, and it will be always at noon Eastern Standard Time. All right, guys, thanks, and hopefully we will see you on the call again a month from now. Have a happy holiday, everybody. Take care.